Welcome to I hate to even call this special edition of Jungle Juice. It is a depressing episode of Jungle Juice here. It is Sam Gormley, Mick Nelson with our very good friend, and we hope yours, Mr. Tommy Lipscomb. And boys, nothing happened today, right?
I cried a lot. That's what happened today.
I was very lucky that I had to work and broadcast a high school basketball showcase event. So for 2.5 hours, I got to take my mind off of it. But then afterwards, I'm very open on air about mentioning that I'm a big Bengals fan. And so most of these fans know it. And a couple of them just asked me, they're like, "Are you okay?" No. No. I said, I'm not okay. Not even a little bit. We're really quite depressed over here.
Yeah, it's a different mood. The first time, the ACL, I was more in a mood of anger and frustration than I was in a mood of sadness, probably because I didn't expect anything out of the 2020 team. We had really lofty expectations going into this season, and this is tough. It sucks, man.
Obviously, if you just joined us, I don't think it's any secret. We assume you're a Bengals fan. Big news today: Joe Burrow, after the injury in last night's Thursday night football game against the Ravens, hurt, I guess, some ligaments in his right wrist, and is out for the season. I think the way that we should start this, guys, though, is that really when we were recording our weekly podcast on Wednesday, is when this news started to come out. And the picture was posted of him getting off of the plane with the so-called wrap on his wrist. And immediately everybody starts going into sleuth mode. What is it? What does it mean? And so on. And Joe Burrow said today that it was just a compression sleeve on it. Are they connected?
No.
I don't think so.
Because the NFL now is allegedly looking into this. I know that they asked Zach Taylor and said, has he heard from them? And he pretty much said, no, he has not heard anything from them. But again, as I always say, would he have actually said, oh, yes, the NFL is investigating us for lying about an injury? But for me, my biggest thing, and I know I said this in our group message earlier, is what benefit would the Bengals have had to have lied about something like that?
They wouldn't have had any benefit to do it. There's, Joe's reasoning for it, saying, later on in the season, as it gets colder, the altitude up in the air can cause your arm to swell up, and you wear the compression sleeve to avoid that. I mean, that sounds perfectly reasonable for him to be doing that. And I'm going to get on a soapbox a little bit. I think it is absolutely appalling that people like Dave Portnoy are pretty much using this awful situation and making it about themselves. It sucks what happened. And obviously there's a little bit of speculation. I remember seeing it on Thursday afternoon. I wasn't too worried about it. But the fact that he's, saying he's going to launch a class action lawsuit, for people gambling on the football game, and him making these very damaging assumptions about the Bengals and how they manage their injuries. I think it's appalling, and I'm frankly disgusted by it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. When I heard, or when I found out about Portnoy just throwing a fit about losing $100,000. I mean, I'm like, that's just betting, dude. That's just betting. I don't know how many times I have, placed a bet, and then somebody go down, I'm like, God darn it. And, you just go, you move on. I mean, it's football. Injuries happen in football.
Yeah.
Will writes in and asks, is Joe Burrow out for the season or what? Yes. It was announced today that Joe Burrow is out for the season. And for me, I know Mick and I were talking about this earlier, Tommy, and I don't know if I'm the only one in this realm, but last night, we saw, and I didn't know whether Prime, that was a replay or if it literally was live. When he throws the ball, and immediately you can tell, and immediately I think I was like, crap, like this is not good. He runs back in, and then he starts to come out there, but goes back into the locker room right before the half. Then finally comes out in the second half, doesn't come back into the game, but you realize what stood out to me is nothing on his hand at all. They didn't wrap it. They didn't put it in a brace. They didn't put ice on it. They did nothing at all. So to me, I was thinking, and Zach Taylor after the game says sprained wrist. Now, obviously, Zach Taylor doesn't know at that point, but I'm thinking, okay, maybe he won't play against the Steelers. Worst case scenario, he misses the Jacksonville game, but then he's back for, Colts Vikings for the last couple of games of the season. Maybe they can sneak in and get the 6 or 7 seed. And then they pull it out today. All of a sudden, he's out for the season. Did it come out of left field, or is that just me? Or is it just me in the denial phase, like I know Megan says here?
I think I personally thought as soon as I saw that he couldn't grip the football, I thought it was really bad. I don't know what you can do with the sprained wrist as opposed to a torn ligament, but the fact that we saw that, him try to do it and him just, slam his helmet in frustration about it made me feel like it was a lot more serious than a sprained wrist.
My thing about it was, I'm pretty much from the same way as you. And when I seen it looked like he was about ready to come out, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I was like what Sam was talking about. Hey, maybe miss a game or two. They got 10 days off. He'll come back. He'll be fine. Now, the only thing I'm not for sure about is I'm not really for sure of the layout or the how accessible like the imaging room at M&T Stadium is. I don't know. Maybe they couldn't do an MRI or, do anything last night, and they had to wait till they got back to Cincinnati to do that, and it looked worse than what they thought it was. What it was, and I don't know.
That's my assumption as to what this was. I don't think Zach Taylor after the game is thinking, you know what, I'm going to wait 12 hours to break the news to Bengals fans because I want them to have, just pure depression for a long sequence of times. Like, that's why I think, and I think it surprised everybody. I know it shocked me when it came out that the news had happened, but immediately I went into the denial phase. I was like, there's no chance. I know I was telling Mick that when the alert came through, I thought somebody had hacked the Bengals page because it wasn't something that I had even it wasn't something I'd even considered of being a possibility. And again, that's probably me being naive, but my goodness.
Yeah. Maybe Zach Taylor wanted to give the other NFL fallen soldier his 12-hour news cycle before he dropped Joe's. Wasn't the only significant season-ending injury to happen in that game. But yeah, I think Tommy kind of hit the nail on the head. I don't think that they probably had the proper access to resources that they needed to determine whether it was a torn ligament or not. And that's that.
Burrow left the game, and immediately they bring in Jake Browning, obviously. And honestly, when we're talking just about Jake Browning, he wasn't bad. Like, because you got to think about it this way, is there could not have been probably a worse scenario for a guy to make really his first appearance in an NFL game. He'd thrown one pass in that Cleveland game, but it was, 24-3 or whatever it was. It was raining. It was over. There's nothing. But you're throwing him in a hostile environment on prime time after your star quarterback gets injured. Like it was the worst situation. And when you combine all of that, I think he performed okay.
Yeah, I thought he did a pretty good, given the circumstances. I mean, what was he? He was like 8 for 14 with no, it was just under 70 yards, but he also had 40 yards rushing, on 4 carries. One thing we did see about him in the preseason, and it looks like we're going to see more now in the regular season, is he is a pretty mobile guy, and he's not afraid to run. And I thought, I don't know, I thought he did good, given the circumstances. And on practice, how often do they get to does he get to practice with the first string?
Not very.
So
couple plays.
chemistry is important. Chemistry is very important.
And you saw that early, too, because he was going to guys like Shedrick Jackson. He threw to him one of his first passes and was going deep. He was throwing to Trenton Irwin, guys that he's more comfortable with, more so than Jamar Chase. And I love it. He threw the one ball to Chase down the sideline, and Chase makes an unbelievable catch. It was out of bounds, but it was still a great catch going up over top. And I think immediately, probably in the back of his head, Jake Browning was like, oh, like, there's a little bit of a difference between Jamar Chase and Shedrick Jackson and Kwame Lassiter and such.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit of a difference between those two. I mean, I think that, when we talk about Browning, Mick, is there any confidence in that as Jake Browning as a quarterback for multiple games?
Maybe they get a win or two here. That sucks that they're going up against a really, tough, final, 8 games or whatever to end the season. And I thought it was tough even with Joe Burrow playing, and now you've got Jake Browning in, and, kudos to Jake Browning. He came in and played, I think, fairly decently. Definitely is very smart and, wasn't making any boneheaded plays. But, does Jake Browning have that magic factor that, the Bengals relied on Burrow for the past 3.5 years? I don't think necessarily does. But really, what I want to see is how the team as a whole kind of responds to this, because the roster is so damn talented. And, they essentially, I mean, it's just crazy that they were kind of in the thick of it for 2.5 quarters. They were only down to score, midway through the third quarter, and the defense just looked like it gave up. And that's what I'm kind of worried about, is Jake Browning going to be able to rally the troops? And, is this roster going to, play to its, fullest potential it can play under Jake Browning?
The other thing you look at is you have sitting on your practice squad is a guy in AJ McCarron, who I kind of want to I want to go two places with AJ McCarron. For one, number one, is like he does have experience in NFL games. Is he the most experienced backup quarterback? No, but he is a veteran as far as he's seen more. But at the same time, A.J. McCarron has appeared in 5 games in his NFL career, or made 5 starts? Like, I think that there is a sense of Bengals fans being a little bit tied into A.J. McCarron more and giving him more credit than maybe he deserves. Like, I don't really know if we are being completely upfront and honest with ourselves that there is going to be that much of a drastic difference between Jake Browning and A.J. McCarron. Like, would you feel any different against the Steelers in 9 days or whatever it is with Jake Browning or with A.J. McCarron?
I think I'd have the same confidence level in both quarterbacks. The one thing, because I think both bring different skill sets to the table, I think McCarron has a little bit better of an arm and has a lot more zip on the ball than Jake Browning does. But Jake Brown also has that escapability factor and can make plays with his legs. And I've said this before, he reminds me a lot of Jeff Driscoll when Jeff Driscoll came in and played in 2018. So, yeah, I don't think the team is going to fare any, better with AJ McCarron, and especially because AJ hasn't been with the team as long, hasn't had, I don't know how many reps he really gets, at practice and stuff like that. But I mean, I do think it's good to have both of those guys in the room, in case of, everything with Jake Browning just goes to hell. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. When I look at, if I got to compare McCarron and Browning, my biggest thing is escapability. I mean, Burrow's not going to be there. That hideous offensive line is still there. And I did try to research McCarron in the XFL. I know the XFL is different than the NFL. You know, the quality of the players just isn't quite as good, but I mean, they're still professionals. And McCarron just played 9 games, even though they won the championship. He played 9 regular season games for the Battlehawks. In those 9 games, 28 sacks.
Yeah.
It was the worst offensive line and they still won the championship, but it was 8 more than second place. And then I was like, well, what's going on? So I started looking at clips of him. He just can't move. And I mean, how many 33-year-old quarterbacks can actually move the way a 24, 25, 26-year-old quarterback can move? It's just not going to happen in football with most quarterbacks. And, my concern is McCarron's going to get back there. It's going to look like how Burrow was like the first 2 or 3 weeks into the season, and he's just going to get slaughtered back there because this line just isn't good.
Jack writes in and says, we think they should call Carolina and see what they want for Andy Dalton. Sadly, that's not an option because unless Andy Dalton would have to pass through waivers for that. So the trade deadline is passed. So technically, the only guys, if they wanted to add a quarterback to the room, which they're going to, I mean, they're going to have to because what will happen is almost guaranteed is that in the next 24 hours or something like that, or 48 hours or something, Joe Burrow will be placed on IR, which will free up the roster spot, and A.J. McCarron will be probably taken from the practice squad to the active roster. And then presumably, and I know, Tommy, you brought up this point in a message, and I think you're exactly right, more than likely, at least for the time being, you're going to see Reed Sinnett probably come back. And he will be that practice squad guy. If anything else, he's just there to take some reps and be another guy in the room. They could then go and look at some of these other free agent quarterbacks. But I will say this. I know I've seen some people say, oh, well, Cam Newton. That's not gonna happen.
I saw RG3.
That's not going to happen. Like, the Bengals are not going to go. Because for a guy like that, the only way that they're going to be signing somebody is if they're cheap. And do you really think Cam Newton is going to want to come in and play for literally the vet minimum and be on an NFL practice squad? Dalton has an interesting thing here and says, what do you think about them calling up Matt Ryan? I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure that's not an option either because Matt Ryan is still technically under contract by the Indianapolis Colts because he's not officially retired. So that would mean that he can't be an option either, sadly. And then the other one that I saw, which, again, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be against it, is Tom Brady. Like, call him up. What's he going to say?
He's too busy prancing around in his underwear right now, for his underwear commercials. He ain't got time for that.
Ryan Fitzmagic.
He's got a pretty sweet gig right now. I don't think
for Prime. I think the only way Fitzmagic comes back is if Whitworth's his left tackle. And
I'd take that.
And Richard Sherman comes back in the corner. Chase Daniel. Is Chase Daniel a free agent right now? I'm not entirely sure. That would be one if he's a free agent that I could potentially see. I can give a Google while I'm talking. But I think if you're going to see a practice squad guy that could potentially start, Chase Daniel, that kind of quarterback would probably be what it is. Apparently, Chase Daniel is retired.
Oh.
At least that's what. Now that's what Wikipedia says, and obviously Wikipedia is the best source that we potentially can give on Jungle Juice.
Yeah.
Yes, he retired on September the 5th in 2023. He's on NFL Network. I had no idea he was in the league for 14 seasons. No idea he was in the league.
He was there for a while.
But I think you're going to see a Chase Daniel more so than I think the Cam Newtons. I saw Colin Kaepernick. Those guys are just there. It's not going to happen, and I don't even think it's really worth having discussion on that.
Yeah,
it's just too late in the season for a lot of those guys. I mean, if you think about it, I was laughing over the RG3 when, like, you all were. And, it goes back to Chase Daniel with RG3. They're working right now. They got contracts right now. I don't know how that works where they got those broadcasting contracts. I don't know if they can break them or not to go back and play football. I mean, they might be able to, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think let's go with this. Or did you have a point, Mick?
I think if there's anybody that's even close to realistic. I don't think they're bringing anybody that's not Reed Sinnett or somebody
An
that's
equivalent.
in Reed Sinnett's
Drew Plitt.
realm. I'd rather have Sinnett than Plitt, but yes.
Wow, Drew Plitt slander on the podcast tonight, Mick.
Yeah, I sorry, no, no, no
Listen, Mick,
no harm,
Drew
no foul
Plitt
on
very
Drew
well
Plitt.
could be watching right now, and you're just slandering him like this.
I'm not saying Drew Plitt's not cool, not a cool guy. Played for Ball State. I'd rather have Reed Sinnett. Anyways, I think if there's like any even, when I say realistic, I think maybe a 5% chance of this ever happening, or I'll even put 2% chance. I'd say it would be Brady, but I don't think Brady would want to come in with this offensive line. And yeah, no, that's not going to happen. We're going to have Jake Browning for the rest of the year, guys. And
maybe AJ McCarron. Maybe AJ McCarron.
at some
Like
point. Yeah.
if Jake, so I guess that can be your next question here is what is the leash, Tommy, on Jake Browning?
I think it's going to be.
Do you think he gets it no matter what, or do you think if he?
I think Jake Browning's starting next Sunday. I really do.
Oh, for sure.
I think that they've invested a lot in him. He let the cat slip out of the bag. What was it? Right before the season, where the reason they brought him up last year was they knew that he was going to be poached off the practice squad. They wanted to hang on to him. They wouldn't do all this if they didn't think highly of him. Now, what he's able to do and what they think can be two different things, but I think he's going to get the first opportunity. And if he plays like what he showed last night, and if he can build off that, I think that leash might get pretty long.
Yeah. I think Browning gets, if he plays poorly for 3 games, or if they lose every game, just to get fans in the stands, I could definitely see the Bengals just starting AJ McCarron just because of the whole nostalgia factor to it, and that might get some people to come in to watch the game or might increase viewership. But I think Jake Browning's leash is fairly long in this situation.
So let's go this way here to wrap us up, because we didn't want to go too long just because we've had enough depression tonight. But this is a nice but first we will say here, Travis here says, why not make a claim and snag a young quarterback on someone's practice squad? If a guy like Malik Cunningham or Will Greer or Malik Willis becomes available, see what they got in audition for a backup role. Honestly, I would not be shocked to see if they make a guy like pulled from a practice squad.
So can they steal Will Greer, even though the Patriots stole him from us earlier in the year?
He's on the 53 man.
He's on the 53
man.
He is on the 53 man, because when they poached him, they had to put him on the 53 man, and they haven't got rid of him yet.
Because and Tommy, I know you know these rules as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can't poach somebody from a practice squad to put on your practice squad. Correct.
Yeah, you have to go when you're 53 man.
So I guess the question I had is so they had Will Greer obviously on the 53 man when they poached him. I didn't know if they had to keep him on the 53 man for X amount of games, and then they could move him to the practice squad if they wanted to. Not sure how the rule works there, but I would assume Will Greer is probably not an option.
Yeah, the only way they could put him on a practice squad is they have to release him. Now, I don't think Will Greer goes through waivers again, but the problem is if they cut him to sign him on a practice squad, he may go elsewhere. Because, he had no choice to go to New England. He may want to go somewhere else. So that's still a risk that they have to take.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have here, CBS literally this morning posted an article, and I love the poor guy that has to write this article, power ranking the practice squad quarterbacks right now. So this is the top 10 practice squad quarterbacks right now. So these are guys that if the Bengals make this poor guy, who
I'm
gets the job
I'm
of
really
weekly,
interested in this now.
Number 10, Max Duggan, quarterback from the Chargers.
Okay.
TCU, that could be a guy that I could potentially see, kind of what Jack's saying here, what the Bengals could consider high potential, but in what real GMs consider high potential. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the second half of that, but I think a high potential guy like a Max Duggan. I don't know that he's the perfect fit, but he's a guy that's listed here. And now I got to close the ad. Brett Rapine, isn't that how you say it there? From he's on the Seahawks.
Okay.
Chris Oladokun from the Chiefs,
Mm-hmm.
from South Dakota State. Number 7, Jeff Driscoll, quarterback from the Cardinals. You ever heard of him?
I like
Number
Jeff.
6.
I like Jesse Draft. Yeah.
Number 6, Malik Cunningham on the Patriots. Number 5, Nathan Rourke from the Jags, pride of Ohio.
The best preseason touchdown I've ever seen this past preseason. It's pretty dope.
Number 4, Shane Buechele from SMU, Texas. He's on the Bills. Trace
Really, he's on the
McSorley,
Bills.
a
Okay.
quarterback from the Bears. That's an interesting one because the Bengals have worked him out recently. So he could be one that you could actually see happening. David Blau from the Lions. And number 1, Trevor Siemian from the Jets. Could that be somebody that you could see them pull back?
What's the story on Stetson? Is he on is Stetson Bennett on the Rams roster, or is
I
he?
think
Is he
Stetson
even
Bennett
alive?
is on. I think he is on a non-injury
He's on a
exemption list.
hiatus.
I think
Okay.
yes, I think he is. Dalton writes in and says, "Do you guys know how long Burrow is out? Like they said, the season, or is he like done for 6 months?"
There's been no there's no timetable yet.
Bennett is
on
done
how
for the
long.
season, according to
He
Riley
is
too.
done for the season. Yes, there's no timetable on how long it's going to take for him to recover from this.
But I do know that Zach Taylor pretty much said today that there is no concern about next season. Like
Well, that's
none even like a little bit that they expect him. Now, I don't know whether that means like, is this one of those things that theoretically if Jake Browning would lead them to the Super Bowl, like could Burrow play like in February? Or if Burrow's not ready until April, he's not ready until July. Those are the things that we don't know. And honestly, I don't even think that they know because they need to have the surgery first. And I'm not even sure that they know exactly what kind of surgery he's going to have.
Yeah, from what I've heard about this is that this is a pretty rare injury, and this is like Andrew Luck territory of rare quarterback injuries. We haven't really heard of any quarterbacks having a torn ligament in their wrist. I think Blake Bortles might have been close to that a few years ago, but
So, Tommy, let's go with this here. I want you to be our optimist.
Okay.
Give me an optimistic take for the Bengals for the rest of the season on how we can feel. You might have the harder option of this, and I'll let Mick be the pessimist because he's usually good at that. Or maybe I should make Mick be the optimist for once.
we can switch roles if you want.
Do you want to take the optimist? You know what? We'll let you pick, Tommy. Would you like to be the optimist or the pessimist?
Mick can have whatever he wants. He wants
Well,
to pick
my-
You know what?
My optimistic view is probably the pessimistic view for a lot of viewers, because you're going to hear what my optimistic view is, because I don't want to see this team go fucking so sorry. Put the
Language,
explicit
Mick.
mark on this. I don't want to see this team go 8-9 and then we're drafting like 20th or not 20th. We're drafting like 15 to 17 in the.
You don't want them to Marvin Lewis it.
Yes, I do not want them to Marvin Lewis it. So my optimistic take is definitely the pessimistic take of, have Jake Browning in there. He looks like Jeff Driscoll for an entire second half of the season. They lose probably every game, maybe win one, maybe win two. And they've got, potentially a top 10 draft pick.
Okay, Tommy, give us the, even though that pretty much was the pessimistic take.
Well, then I guess I'll go more optimistic then. I think they do Marvin Lewis it. I think they do Marvin Lewis it.
Now is that an 8-9 or a lose in the first round of the playoffs, Marvin Lewis?
I think it's 9-8 and looking on the bubble, trying to see which teams go in. It's kind of a bold take because that would mean that they go 4 and
4
for the rest of the season. I mean, it's possible. I mean, I don't see it, but I wouldn't be surprised just for the fact that you got guys like Jake Browning. This is the last year of his deal. He may be in Cincinnati next year. He may be elsewhere next year. He's got the spotlight on him now. This is his chance to actually get him a deal somewhere. You're going to have T. Higgins coming back. Where's T. Higgins going to be next year? We don't know. Probably not in Cincinnati. There's your pessimistic take. But probably not in Cincinnati. But, he's going somewhere. He's looking for cash. He's going to be looking for numbers and some highlights, to go with that cash. Then you got guys like Awuzie, Reader. Those guys are going to be looking for homes next year. So these are guys that's not going to want to tank. They're just going to go out there and just give it everything they can. And they're probably going to sneak a few wins in here and there.
Okay.
They've got a very talented roster still.
Here's my thing. I'll be the over-optimist here. Let's look at the Bengals' schedule here. 3 of your remaining games are against backup quarterbacks as well.
Yep.
Vikings are starting Josh Dobbs.
Colts.
The Colts are starting Gardner Minshew. And the Browns are starting whoever the heck they're going to be starting at that point. Maybe Joe Flacco. Apparently he was headed that way. So you're looking at okay, let's say they win all 3 of those games. And you also look at that. What's the other thing that all 3 of those games have in common? They're all in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say they win those 3 games. That's 8 wins, right? 8 wins? Or
Yeah.
Is it 8 wins?
Yeah, 8 wins.
And then maybe you're saying, and then honestly, Riley read right back into my next point. And 2 games against Matt Canada. Like you're telling me that maybe like in Tommy's realm, could they get to 9 wins and sneak in as that 7 seed? Now, in a lot of realm, that would mean, okay, you're the 7th seed and you're headed to Baltimore. Again, with Jake Browning as your starting quarterback. Like, is that as good? Or is it better for this team long-term to pull a 49ers, what they've done, and tank and get Nick Bosa, as the example of a guy who they've tanked to get, or they seemingly do it once every 3 or 4 years, and just completely tank and get a top 5 pick. So that's my optimistic view, as there is still technically a path to where you're just telling me that you have to beat the 3 backup quarterbacks and then get 1, maybe 2 out of playing Kenny Pickett twice. You're playing Trevor Lawrence, who's solid. Now Mahomes,
yeah, it's tough. We're gonna win that game.
Listen, if Jake Browning wins that game, my goodness. Listen, but then again, and I wish I should have pulled his picture up. Did any of us think Ryan Finley was going to beat the Steelers on Monday Night Football?
No.
Did any of us really think that in our heart of hearts?
No.
And what is one of my all-time favorite Bengals wins? Ryan Finley against the Steelers. It will go down as one of my all-time favorites. So I think that is the optimistic look at this, is that there is still a path. Now, am I predicting this? No. But I think for me, in fact, let's do this here to close this out. What is the Bengals' record this season? Mick.
I'll go 7-10.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's exactly what I was going to say.
That's what I was going to say. Great minds think alike. I think 7-10 as well.
And you're picking anywhere from 10 to 12.
But 7-10.
And then I think that you're doing 10 to 12, picking in that same range. Jack says 6-11. Listen, I honestly, other than Jake Browning winning out and like somehow looking like the best backup quarterback in the league, there's nothing that would necessarily shock me. I think anything more than 10 would be blowing my mind, shocking. But I think not anywhere from 5 to 9 wouldn't necessarily blow my mind.
Yeah.
Scott says 8-9. Megan says 9-8. Riley says 10-7 with AJ McCarron.
He's a big AJ McCarron guy.
Hey, we all love AJ McCarron. My thing is, I think Browning should be the guy right now. But here's the thing: if they put AJ McCarron in, he does well. I'm going to be happy.
Yep. I would like to see a nostalgia game in there if the season's lost at the end of the year. Just to see him. Yeah, you can see him play against the Browns, in week 18. And, say he goes out and beats the Browns. And then, you just say, oh, hey, Cleveland, you really could have had this 7 years ago.
What's Scott's idea there? Bring back Boomer.
Hey, there you go.
Hey, Boomer can still bring back Jeff Blake. He's still got a big arm. He's got.
Are we going to say Akili? Are we that desperate?
Yep.
Achilles
Hey,
Smith is
got
going to make.
a lot of potential. Not former 3rd overall pick.
Yep. Play here, play there, and he's the best quarterback in all time. Dalton says our roster is crazy talented. Game plan will change, but get the ball in our playmakers' hands. D plays big like they have played, and we'll be okay. I mean, that's the thing. The defense is going to have to carry it now.
Yeah.
They've been very inconsistent. They have had really good moments.
I forgot all about
really bad moments.
I forgot all about the defense carrying them. 5-12, that's their final record. I forgot all about the defense.
We'll dive into the game itself on Thursday, or from last night. We will be back not on our typical day. We will be back on Monday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. And Brandon Allen is on the. He is on. I think he's on the active. He's on the active roster. So I think. Listen, Evan McPherson is quarterback.
At this point, I'd see Joe Mixon. I could see Joe Mixon just be quarterback for a game.
Cam Taylor-Britt has that in his background as well. I think he was a quarterback at one point. Let's just have they literally just put all the names into a hat and draw it out, and that's who the quarterback is of the week. Let's put DJ Reader back there. Let's let the man eat. He can throw.
This man will not get sacked.
No way. And he can throw. He was a pitcher.
He was.
And a really good one there at Clemson. You can always follow us on our Facebook page, Jungle Juice. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow our buddy Josh Isles over at WDN Today. Join us on Facebook as well, Houday Nation. It is the best Facebook group on Facebook, on Bengals Facebook group. There is never anybody that ever complains in it.
Nope. No. 100% approval rating.
That's a good one.
It is always rainbows, and BJ Hill is quarterback. I like it.
I heard the admins are really good on Houday Nation. They're just word on the street.
Except that one guy that thinks he's a comedian.
Oh, yeah, that guy's a clown.
But Tommy, thanks for joining us really quick to try and bring a smile to our group injury session, therapy session.
Yep. No problem. I'm glad to be here, and it's whatever happens the rest of the season. I'm going to be at the games. I'm going to be posting the news. If we have some great clips, we're going to show some great clips. We're going to make the most of the season regardless.
For sure.
Yep, we're Bengals fans no matter what. If the debacle of the Steelers playoff game back in 2016 didn't bring us down, this certainly won't. Scott says, keep the faith, go Bengals. I think that's a great way for us to end this for today.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you back here on Monday. We'll dive deeper into that and more as the days goes along. Make sure to follow us on Jungle Juice Facebook. You can also re-listen to this podcast on our podcast platform. Pick your favorite one and listen back that. So thanks everyone for listening. And as Scott says, keep the faith. Keep the faith. Houday.